And what we did was to introduce a landmark piece of legislation known as AB 32, the California Global Warming Solution Act. The provisions of AB 32 will require industry to report their carbon dioxide emissions. It'll establish a cap on emissions, and it will reduce emissions to the 1990 levels by the year 2020, and will continue to require reductions beyond 2020. AB 32 authorizes the use of regulatory approaches and allows for the potential use of market mechanisms in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, including banking, borrowing, cap and trade, as well as auctions. The state's top air agency is going to be required to study all of these approaches and eventually make recommendations on which combination of regulations and market approach works best for California. I want to talk for a moment about cap and trade, because cap and trade is receiving the most attention. But problems that others have experienced in testing cap and trade are a sign that in this arena we should proceed, but we should proceed cautiously. And while we are evaluating cap and trade, as well as other market-based approaches, I believe it will be ultimately the regulatory framework that makes the biggest difference, at least in our state here in California. AB 32, came together in the middle of an election year with a governor and legislators from totally different parties who decided that it was imperative that we work together. In fact, AB 32 showed there doesn't have to be political divisions when it comes to global warmings, or economic ones for that matter. In addition to the strong environmental support behind this law, even one of the state's largest utilities, Pacific Gas and Electric, supported AB 32. And so did our ski industry. In fact, several high-tech CEOs and many venture capital leaders also came on board. That helped show the economic vitality of AB 32, and it helps signal that we want to spur high-tech and a green economy for the state of California. In fact, one study that we witnessed during the course of the debate on AB 32 found that meeting the limits that we've established for this new law will create over 83,000 new jobs. Economists now predict that we're going to have a boost to our state's annual gross product of over $60 billion. And for me, elected from an inner city community, economic opportunity is clearly a very powerful motivator. Of course, AB 32 is only one of the areas where California is taking the lead on global warming. We're also advancing green buildings and alternative fuels. We've developed and beginning to work on research and development opportunities to spur clean technologies. We're working to reduce emissions from things like landfills, and we're using bond funds to promote sustainable and livable communities and neighborhoods. We're also working to help replicate California's experience around the country. After years of leadership deficit in the White House, the Democratic leaders of the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as the Senate in Washington, are making some clear strides in this direction. For example, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a Californian as well, has established a first-ever committee in the House of Representatives to take on global warming issues. The chair of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works, Senator Barbara Boxer, who is a Californian as well, has introduced a bill that takes elements of AB 32 and moves them to the national arena. The momentum building in the United States on climate change, I believe, is incredibly invigorating. There is no telling what new technologies can be developed and harnessed to make our emissions even lower than what we've established under the AB 32 guidelines. Our air needs to be made healthier, and our future and the future of our children needs to be made brighter. Not to mention, it needs to also be made cooler. I read that in Denmark, no place is further away from the sea than 52 kilometers. You know, I grew up nearer than that to a coast, but the view from the apartment building where I grew up as a young child wasn't of the sailboats in the bay that were in the water, but instead my view was of the smokestacks of a shipbuilding factory. I want the neighborhoods of the children of California and the children of the world to be clean neighborhoods. I believe that we all want the economy for the children of California and the children of the world to be a clean economy. I believe that AB 32 will help us do that. I believe that conferences like this, bringing together top leaders and committed activists, will also help do that. I believe that a new energy that is leading in the United States into a fuller partnership with our fellow stewards of this planet will also help do that. But you know, I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for allowing me to be part of this conference, even if it's not being there in person. I want to wish you all of the best for this conference. And I also want to wish you all of the best for all of the events leading up to the 2009 Copenhagen Climate Summit. Maybe I will see you there with new reports of the progress that my state and my country have made. In the meantime, if you ever get a chance to come to California, you ought to come see me. We'll head out to Solvang and perhaps we'll share some Abelskiver together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us, and enjoy your Æbleskiver, and only eat them moderately. You should be careful.